17 Thanksgiving facts to share with your family. Thanksgiving is a special holiday for many popular reasons. The food, the family, and the football are just a few. Less well known are the many fascinating facts behind the holiday's history, traditions, and myths. The truth is, for many of us there's a lot we don't know about the holiday we celebrate every fourth Thursday in November. So before carving up your family's turkey this year, take the time to learn some of the most interesting Thanksgiving facts we could find. At the very least, you'll have some fun and harmless dinner conversation to contribute. One, the day after Thanksgiving is the busiest day of the year for plumbers. Black Friday isn't just big business for retailers, plumbers and drain cleaners get in on the action, too. According to Roto-Rooter, the day after Thanksgiving is the busiest day of the year, for those who keep water flowing and going in homes and businesses. In related news, they also recommend not pouring cooking oil down your drain. 2. Americans eat 704 million pounds of turkey every Thanksgiving. According to the National Turkey Federation, around 44 million turkeys were served at Thanksgiving in the United States in 2017. That's compared to 22 million pounds at Christmas and 19 million at Easter. The average weight of each, meanwhile, was 16 pounds, which means we're gobbling up 704 million pounds of turkey across the country. 3. The Butterball hotline answers 100,000 turkey-related questions every year. Butterball, a popular turkey company, opens a turkey hotline each November and December to answer any turkey-related questions you may have. Founded in 1981, the Turkey Talk line went from receiving a modest 11,000 questions that first year to answering more than 100,000 questions across the US and Canada every holiday season. 4. Calvin Coolidge was given a live raccoon one Thanksgiving. In 1926, President Calvin Coolidge was gifted a live raccoon, who was intended to be on the table, instead of a turkey for the first family's Thanksgiving meal. He and First Lady Grace Coolidge weren't inclined to eat the masked creature. Instead, they adopted the raccoon, gave her the name Rebecca, and kept her as a White House pet. 5. Native Americans had many uses for the cranberry. Long before homemade and canned cranberry sauces became a traditional Thanksgiving meal, indigenous Americans had many other uses for the small red fruit. Not only did they eat cranberries fresh and use them as an ingredient in other foods, native communities also used cranberries to heal wounds and dye fabrics. 6. Female turkeys don't gobble. You probably relate turkeys with the gobble sound, but only male turkeys actually emit that call, which is why they're known as gobblers. Females and males cackle, purr, and yelp, depending on the situation. 7. Frozen had the biggest Thanksgiving opening of any movie. Thanksgiving is a big weekend for movie releases, especially flicks the whole family can go out and enjoy together. As of today, the 2013 Disney animated musical Frozen is the #1 Thanksgiving release of all time, pulling in $93 million domestically. 8. Tofu is the most hated Thanksgiving dish. Sorry, vegetarians. In a 2020 YouGov poll, tofu was the most unpopular element of a potential Thanksgiving meal. 9. Jingle Bells was originally a Thanksgiving song. Jingle Bells, the classic Christmas song, written by James Lord Pierpont in 1857, wasn't meant to be about Christmas. Originally titled One Horse Open Sleigh, the ditty was meant to be sung on Thanksgiving. When it was reprinted in 1859, however, the name was changed to Jingle Bells, or the One Horse Open Sleigh, and was prescribed for Christmas. 10. FDR once moved Thanksgiving up a week. In the midst of the Great Depression, President Franklin D. Roosevelt moved Thanksgiving up 1 week, in order to allow more time for shopping before Christmas. Otherwise, it would have fallen on November 30th. The move spurred intense public reaction, though none as memorable as the stunt pulled by Atlantic City's then mayor, C.D. White. In a public statement issued the day before the new Thanksgiving as designated by Roosevelt, White announced that his city would celebrate 2 days of thanks, and that the earlier date would be known as Franksgiving. 11. The first Thanksgiving lasted 3 days. The event, commonly referred to as the First Thanksgiving, was celebrated in October 1621. It was organized by Governor William Bradford of Plymouth, Massachusetts, to celebrate the recent immigrants' first successful corn harvest in the New World. While the meal lacked much of what is now common Thanksgiving fare, there's no record of turkey being served. For example, there were at least 5 deer carcasses present, and the event lasted a full 3 days. 12. The woman who got Thanksgiving reinstated as a national holiday also wrote Mary Had a Little Lamb. Sarah Hale is known as the mother of Thanksgiving because, at a time when the holiday was only celebrated in the Northeast, she spent 4 decades campaigning for a National Day of Thanks. In 1863, she finally persuaded then-President Abraham Lincoln to reinstate the holiday nationwide. In addition, Hale was also a successful editor and poet, penning the famous Mary Had a Little Lamb and retiring at the ripe age of 90. 13. George H.W. Bush's presidential pardon of a turkey was a joke of sorts. The tradition of U.S. presidents receiving turkeys as gifts can be traced back to the 1870s, but it was Harry S. Truman who became the first to receive one from the Poultry and Egg National Board and the National Turkey Federation in 1947. It was intended, perhaps, as a peace offering by the poultry industry, after egg growers sent crates of live chickens to the White House labeled hens for Harry, an act of protest against the president's short-lived encouragement of poultry-less Thursdays. And though the Truman Library and Museum disputes that he was the first to pardon a presidential turkey, a murky tradition of presidents receiving, but not eating, turkeys began. It continued under the administrations of Kennedy, Nixon, Carter, and Reagan. In 1989, following this tradition, the first official turkey pardon was granted by George H.W. Bush. With animal rights activists standing nearby, the president quipped that this fine tom turkey will not end up on anyone's dinner table. Not this guy, he's granted a presidential pardon as of right now. The rest, as they say, is history. 14. Canada celebrates a totally different Thanksgiving. You might have believed Thanksgiving was purely American, but it's celebrated in Canada, too. Instead of the last Thursday in November, however, it falls on the second Monday of every October. The first to be nationally declared was held in 1872 to celebrate the medical recovery of the Prince of Wales. The prince had been suffering from a fever, which had filled the minds of all loyal subjects with the deepest anxiety, according to the Perth Gazette and West Australian Times. And that's why our neighbors to the north give thanks. 15. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade balloons used to just be let go after the show. The first large-scale balloon used in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade was Felix the Cat in 1927, replacing the earlier zoo animal that were used in the first 3 iterations of the parade. Because there were no plans yet for deflating the balloons, most were simply allowed to float away afterwards. Unfortunately, this strategy didn't prove very effective, as most popped shortly after being released. 16. Before 1997, there were no size regulations on Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade balloons. In 1997, the Barney balloon was ripped along its abdomen, due to strong winds, while the Pink Panther had to be stabbed by police in order to be stabilized. The worst event occurred, meanwhile, when Cat in the Hat struck a lamppost at 72nd Street and then crumpled to the ground. In response to 1997's calamities, organizers of the parade instituted size regulations that required all balloons to be no larger than 70 feet high, 78 feet long, and 40 feet wide. 17. About 50 million people watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade annually. Approximately 50 million Americans tune into the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade each year. Another 3.5 million people view it in person, and roughly 10,000 participate in non-pandemic years at least. And though the parade doesn't begin until 9 a.m. ET, many spectators arrive as early as 6:30 a.m. lining the streets of New York to get a spot along the route.